Welcome back to Tank Guide Life Podcast, a product of Fish Keeping Life Co. Today we are really getting into what is, I think, maybe the most frustrating question for anyone starting out in this incredible hobby, which is, how do I build an easy, low-maintenance aquarium?
Right, that quest for easy. I mean, that's what separates the people who stick around from the ones who, quit after 6 months of just stress.
You start researching and it's like, bam.
Instantly, you're facing complex nitrogen cycles. You've got wildly conflicting advice from forums.
Oh, the form.
And a whole dictionary of jargon, KH, GH, TDS, bioload, osmoregulation. I mean, it makes you feel like you need a chemistry degree just to keep a few fish alive.
Exactly. And our whole mission here at TTG is to move you past that initial confusion and get you to a place of real confidence. Because what we've seen is that beginners, they usually try to solve the wrong problem. They go looking for a single species, this like mythical, indestructible, easy fish that will just tolerate bad conditions.
And that approach is, well, not only is it frustrating for the owner in the long run, it's fundamentally harmful to the animal.
Right.
It treats the fish like a disposable part in a system that's just not managed well.
So we're changing the equation right from the start. What's the core idea we're really getting at today? It's not about finding that one tough fish. It's that you don't want easy fish. You want an easy system.
That is the crucial shift in perspective. It's everything. When we talk about low maintenance, we aren't talking about less attention. We're talking about achieving maximum stability.
Stability, okay.
The goal is to set up a robust system. So that means enough water volume, serious filtration, a fully established nitrogen cycle, a system that's so stable it actively resists change.
So it kind of polices itself.
In a way, yeah. That kind of system minimizes those unpredictable swings in your water parameters that force you into crisis mode,
The reactive management.
Exactly. And that turns fish keeping from a stressful chore back into the relaxing, fascinating thing it's supposed to be.
Okay, so let's unpack that first, that dangerous concept, the hardy fish. This is the oldest, most common piece of advice you get, right? You walk into a fish store.
Oh, absolutely. Get this one. It's hardy.
Yeah, which sounds like a get-out-of-jail-free card for a beginner.
It's an incredibly misleading and, frankly, dangerous term. When we call a fish hardy, the implication is that they're robust, that they have, as we've joked before, extra HP or something.
Like a video game character.
Exactly, that they're somehow immune to poor conditions, like they can just metabolize a spike in ammonia with no consequences.
And that mental framing, it gives the beginner this sort of unspoken permission to skip the really important steps.
It does.
They might rush the cycling process. Maybe they skip a few water changes, don't test the water regularly.
Probably because they're thinking, oh, my fish is hardy, it can handle it.
Yeah.
And that assumption is precisely where the damage starts. What hardy actually means is that the species has a slightly wider temporary tolerance for changes.
Okay, temporary. That's the key word.
Key word. Maybe they can survive a brief pH spike or a quick drop in temperature. They might survive that one event, but survival is absolutely not the same as thriving.
Let's focus on that distinction, because that really is the core of responsible fish welfare, isn't it? Surviving versus thriving.
It's everything.
Surviving just means the fish hasn't died yet.
Correct. Thriving means the fish is in optimal health. It's growing to its full potential. It's showing natural behaviors like schooling or breeding. It has vibrant colors.
And a strong immune system.
And, most importantly, a robust, fully charged immune system. When fish are constantly dealing with suboptimal water, even if it's not immediately lethal, the damage is cumulative.
It builds up.
It's invisible, it's chronic, and it drastically shortens the animal's lifespan.
That sounds insidious. Can we talk mechanics? Like, what does that cumulative damage actually look like inside the fish?
Let's use ammonia, since it's the main culprit. Ammonia, specifically the toxic form, NHs, is a chemical irritant. Even low chronic levels cause severe damage to the fish's delicate gill tissue. The gills are made of these fine structures called lamellae,
which they use to breathe.
Essential for breathing and waste excretion. Constant exposure to ammonia actually causes these lamellae to fuse together. It's a process known as clubbing.
So the fish is essentially being suffocated and poisoned at the same time, even if it looks okay from the outside.
Precisely. Its surface area for breathing is dramatically reduced. The fish might look fine for weeks, even months, swimming normally.
But inside?
But inside, its ability to absorb oxygen and get rid of co-euro is permanently damaged. Its growth gets stunted, its energy levels drop, and its lifespan is cut short. The same thing happens with nitrite, which messes with the blood's ability to carry oxygen. It's all chronic stress, not a sudden death, and that's so much harder for a beginner to spot.
And the most common results of that invisible chronic stress is what? A breakdown of the immune system, I'm guessing?
Yes. When a fish's body is constantly spending energy just coping with bad water chemistry, repairing gills, managing osmotic stress, neutralizing toxins, it has less energy for immune defense.
That's when the bad stuff gets in.
That's when you see the classic opportunistic pathogens take hold. Outbreaks of itch or white spot disease, fungal infections, severe fin rot. These are rarely random.
They're a symptom of a bigger problem.
They are an attack on a host whose defenses have been weakened by stress and instability.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, connecting that biology back to our main idea. If we accept that fish welfare comes first, the goal isn't finding the toughest fish species.
The goal is to eliminate the need for toughness entirely. You prioritize stability. The system has to maintain the parameters, temperature, pH, all of it within the species' optimal range.
Not just its survival limits.
Exactly. Not just its absolute tolerance limits. Relying on a fish's hardiness is basically testing the limits of its survival mechanism, which is completely counterproductive to low-maintenance keeping. A stable system means the fish's immune system is always at full strength. That makes disease a rare event instead of a constant battle.
So stability is king. And this is especially true when we look at common beginner problems like old tank syndrome.
Oh, old tank syndrome is the physical result of that chronic instability, and you often see it in smaller, less maintained tanks.
It's that slow, invisible stress that builds up over months.
It is, and it usually involves two chemical collapses happening at once. A buildup of total dissolved solids, or TDS, and the depletion of the water's buffering capacity, which leads to a dangerous pH crash.
And if a fish is already stressed.
It's the crisis that finally pushes it over the edge. A larger, more stable system slows that chemical shift way, way down. It gives you a huge buffer.
So stability is the key to genuine low maintenance. A stable tank just requires less reactive intervention because the variables aren't changing so fast. It literally buys you time. Okay, now that we get how stress builds up, the next step in building an easy system is managing the biggest stress factor there is: waste, bioload. For generations, the hobby used this simple, almost folksy inch per gallon rule.
And that rule, 1 inch of fish per gallon of water, is definitely easy for a beginner to grasp.
It's simple.
But it is universally reviled by experts because it's so completely divorced from biological reality.
Okay, so why specifically is it so flawed?
Because waste production isn't linear. It doesn't scale with length. It scales with biomass, with metabolic rate, and with activity.
Right.
The rule ignores the fish's actual three-dimensional volume, its activity level, its oxygen needs. But let's compare two extremes. The goldfish has way more mass and produces exponentially more waste than the loach, but under the inch per gallon rule, you'd stock them identically. It makes no sense.
So the equation is missing the engine size of the fish.
Good analogy.
Waste isn't just about length. It's about activity, mass, how much it eats, how much it breathes.
Exactly. And that's why the modern science-backed approach, the one we build into our tools, focuses on bioload calculation. Bioload is the total measure of demand. All the waste produced, the oxygen consumed, the uneaten food, all of it. That's what the filter has to process. And you have to apply activity multipliers.
Give me an example of an activity multiplier in action.
Sure. Take two fish of similar mass, a small sedentary betta, or maybe a slow-cruising gourami, versus a hyperactive schooling fish, like a zebra danio.
Okay, yeah. Danios are little rockets.
They are, and because the danio is constantly moving at high speed, it has a much higher metabolic rate than the more static fish.
So it's burning more fuel.
And producing more exhaust. Its bioload is higher, even if its physical size is the same. That faster pace requires more oxygen and generates ammonia faster. If you treat a school of danios the same as a few gouramis based only on length, you risk overwhelming your filter fast.
This brings us to the dilution power of water volume. You always say larger tanks are inherently easier. That seems counterintuitive to a beginner who thinks a 10-gallon is easier than a 75.
It is the single most important piece of advice we can give. Volume equals inertia.
Inertia.
A larger volume of water acts as an enormous buffer. It dilutes waste ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, and crucially, it slows down the rate at which all your parameters change.
So if you have a filter clog or miss a water change in a 10-gallon tank,
your ammonia or nitrate levels could spike to dangerous levels overnight.
But in a larger tank, that same waste is spread out over a much bigger volume, buying you critical time.
Precisely. In a 75-gallon tank, that spike is diluted. It's spread out over days, maybe even weeks, giving you a massive buffer and plenty of time to test, diagnose, and fix the issue before the fish suffer any damage.
That time you gain is low maintenance.
That's the definition of it.
And within this discussion of volume, we have to talk about the shape of the tank, the tall versus long debate. They hold the same water, but not the same number of fish.
This is a critical detail, and beginners often miss it when they're looking for cool aesthetics. Surface area is paramount.
Right.
Because oxygen exchange, the process that feeds your fish and, crucially, the good bacteria in your filter, happens mostly at the water-air boundary. It's governed by principles of gas solubility, like Henry's law.
So a tall, narrow tank, which might look great on a counter, it holds the same gallons as a standard long tank.
But because its surface area is so much smaller, the oxygen saturation potential is lower. The long, shallow tank just naturally allows for more oxygen exchange, which means it can support a higher bioload safely. So if your goal is stability and a healthy community, always prioritize length and surface area over height. The shape of the tank directly contributes to how easy the system is.
Okay, so given all this complexity with bioload activity, multipliers, waste rates, surface area, how does a beginner even navigate that without, a PhD in a spreadsheet?
That's where tools become essential solutions, not just gadgets. The philosophy built into our stocking advisor is the answer to that inch per gallon guesswork.
It doesn't use simple length rules.
No. Instead, it uses logic based on biomass, metabolic demand, and crucially, behavior to calculate a conservative stocking percentage based on the tank's limits and your filtration.
So it's not just about capacity, it's about compatibility and peace.
Compatibility is non-negotiable for a predictable, easy tank. If you mix high-strung, fast fish with slow, timid bottom feeders, you introduce stress. Stress leads to disease. The advisor helps prevent this. It alerts you to known problem pairs: fin nippers with long-finned species, aggressive fish that steal food, or shrimp hunters with your inverts.
And to make sure they can all live in the same water.
Exactly. The environmental card in the advisor highlights compatible temperature, pH, and hardness overlaps. This prevents that common beginner tragedy where one fish is thriving at a pH of 7.5, while another, needing soft, acidic water, is slowly dying from metabolic stress.
You need those optimal ranges to overlap.
Widely and forgivingly, yes.
And ultimately, the stocking limit isn't really dictated by the gallons, but by the performance of the whole system over time.
Yes. The actionable tip here, straight from the science behind the stocking advisor, is this. Your stocking limit is dictated by your ability to keep nitrates under 40 parts per million with your current maintenance schedule.
Okay, so the test kit tells you the real limit.
It does. If your nitrates are always climbing above that threshold, even if the fish look fine, you are chemically overstocked, period. It doesn't matter how many gallons you have. The excess nitrate is the system screaming for more capacity or more maintenance.
Okay, so stability relies on waste management, and waste management relies entirely on your filtration. So the next logical question is, how much filtration is enough? Because the box always says the filter is perfectly rated for my tank size.
And those manufacturer gallon ratings are, well, that's where marketing meets reality. They're often simplified and tied to maximizing the sale of replacement cartridges.
Ah, of course.
They usually rate the filter based on the maximum flow rate, the GPH of a brand new, clean impeller in perfect conditions. They don't account for the drop-in flow when media gets dirty or the need for real biological capacity in a well-stocked tank.
So we need a buffer in our flow rate. What's the TTG recommendation?
We recommend aiming high for GPH, gallons per hour. Aim for 5 to 7 times your tank volume per hour.
So for a 50-gallon tank,
you should be looking for a filter system rated between 250 and 350 GPH. That buffer is absolutely essential for stability. You want to make sure every drop of water passes through the filter media multiple times per hour.
that seems like a really powerful current, especially in a smaller tank. Can you have too much filtration?
That's a great question. You can certainly have too much flow if it's, creating a whirlpool that stresses certain fish.
Right.
But it is incredibly difficult to have too much biological filtration capacity. Filtration at its core is about providing surface area for bacteria.
So if you have slow-swimming fish like a betta or a programi.
Too much current will exhaust them, yes. But the solution isn't to get a smaller filter. The solution is to diffuse the outflow. Use a spray bar or put a sponge on it or just aim it at the glass. You maintain the strong biological processing while keeping the water calm.
This brings us to the great maintenance myth of the hobby, the filter cartridge conspiracy. Every filter package says, replace the cartridge every month. That has to be a myth we can just destroy right now.
It is perhaps the single most destabilizing lie sold to beginners. And yes, it is tied directly to selling more products. Replacing cartridges every month is a guaranteed way to cause a mini-cycle every 30 days.
Why?
Because those porous filter cartridges are the primary home, the scaffolding, for your mature colonies of beneficial bacteria.
So when you follow the instructions and throw out the cartridge, you are literally throwing out the engine of your tank's stability.
Precisely. You're forcing the system to start processing ammonia and nitrate from scratch all over again.
You're intentionally restarting your nitrogen cycle.
And exposing your fish to those toxic spikes we just talked about. The correct routine maintenance is to gently rinse the filter media, and this is key, using old tank water or pre-treated dechlorinated water only.
Never tap water.
Never chlorinated tap water. You only replace the media when it's literally falling apart and can't hold bacteria anymore.
So low maintenance is actually achieved by using permanent media that doesn't need to be replaced.
Exactly. Upgrading your media is the quickest way to boost long-term stability. Stock cartridges are thin. They're designed to be disposable. We recommend replacing them with custom media. You can't beat simple, cut-to-fit filter sponges for biological capacity. Or for maximizing surface area, you use porous biorings like Fluval Biomax or Sechem Matrix.
And those last forever.
They last forever, and they make your tank immediately more predictable because you stop forcing these mini-cycles.
Before we move on, let's touch on equipment as a stability factor. Specifically, the heater. It's a cheap item, but its failure is catastrophic.
A heater failure is one of the quickest ways to lose all your fish. If a heater gets stuck in the on position, it can turn your aquarium into a deadly soup overnight.
And it happens more often than people think.
Especially with cheaper models, yes. That's why the Gear Guide philosophy strongly recommends investing in a simple temperature controller.
And this isn't just about precise temperature control, it's a safety measure.
It's a redundant safety circuit. It acts as an auto shutoff. A controller, like an Inkbird, uses its own separate probe to monitor the water temp. If that controller sees the water has gone past a safe threshold, say 82 degrees, it automatically cuts power to the heater. It prevents the runaway heating scenario.
It's a fundamental investment in predictability.
And fish welfare, yeah. It turns a high-risk failure point into a low-risk inconvenience.
Okay, so if filtration is the engine we build, the nitrogen cycle is the operating system that has to be running perfectly. We can't talk about low-maintenance tanks without covering this non-negotiable step.
It's the invisible chemistry that runs the whole show, and beginners just cannot skip it and expect any kind of stability. The nitrogen cycle is the natural process where good bacteria establish themselves to convey toxic ammonia from fish waste into less toxic nitrite, and then finally into much safer nitrate. That process takes 4 to 8 weeks to fully mature.
And this is the source of that classic ethical debate, isn't it? The beginner's desire for fish now versus the biological necessity of establishing bacteria. Fish in versus fishless cycling.
It's the conflict between immediate gratification and animal necessity. The cautious, safety-first view, the TTG philosophy, is clear. Always complete the cycle first. As we've detailed, even low levels of ammonia cause permanent organ damage. Starting a tank with fish exposes them to a month or more of chemical poisoning, which is ethically unsound and scientifically unpredictable.
And that unpredictability often leads to new tank syndrome, the sudden collapse.
Exactly. The system goes from zero to a toxic crisis in hours because the bacterial colony is just too small to handle the bioload. That results in mass fish death, the total opposite of a relaxing experience.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second because I hear this all the time. But bacteria need food, and a small fish provides a constant source of ammonia. Plus, I can use those bottled bacteria products to speed it up.
And that is technically true, but it relies on constant daily intervention and a level of testing diligence that most beginners just don't have. Products like highly concentrated detoxifiers, like Sechem Prime, can temporarily make ammonia non-toxic, and bottled bacteria can speed things up. However,
It's a gamble.
it's an exercise in volatility. Relying on chemicals to detoxify waste without a mature biological filter as a backup is just risky. We prioritize long-term biological predictability over speed.
So what's the responsible middle path that TTG recommends, the one that balances speed and safety?
We advocate for a hybrid fishless cycle. This involves running the tank for 2 to 3 weeks, simulating a bioload by dosing pure ammonia or just adding fish food, and boosting the system with a high-quality bottled bacteria. This establishes a robust bacterial colony that can handle waste before the first fish ever enters the system. It minimizes stress on the animal.
And how do we know for sure when the tank is actually ready? This is where the measurable proof comes in.
This is the crucial readiness test. We call it the 24-hour challenge. The tank is ready for a few fish only when it can successfully process 2 parts per million of ammonia completely down to 0 ammonia and 0 nitrate within a single 24-hour period.
That's the metric.
That is the metric that proves your filter and your biological system have enough capacity to safely handle a reasonable bioload.
And this is where understanding the test results becomes so important. The Cycling Coach tool, for instance, isn't just a logbook, it's an interpreter. Can you explain how it helps people read those results, especially with toxicity?
The coach goes deep because the chemistry is tricky. Most test kits only measure total ammonia nitrogen, or TAN, which is the sum of 2 forms, the less harmful ammonium and the extremely toxic unionized ammonia, NEGs.
And beginners see a reading of 0.25 ppm and think, oh, that's fine.
But they don't realize how lethal that can be under certain conditions.
So the key isn't just the total number, but understanding the balance between those 2 forms.
Precisely. And that balance is heavily dependent on 2 things: your water's pH and its temperature. This is where it gets technical, but it's critically important. The higher the pH and the higher the temperature, the more the balance shifts toward that highly toxic NH form.
So if someone's running a high-temp tank, say for discus, and their pH is naturally high, like 8.0,
yeah,
that 0.25 ppm reading is way more dangerous than the same reading in a cooler tank with a lower pH.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's why we use the scientific Emerson formula behind the scenes. The Cycling Coach uses your logged pH and temperature to calculate the estimated toxic NHers level. It gives you a specific urgent warning if that calculated toxic level exceeds 0.02 ppm. That threshold is a widely recognized aquatic life criterion for stress and damage, and it turns complex chemistry into a simple red flag for the user.
That kind of granular, chemistry-driven insight is what makes a low-maintenance system possible. You're getting ahead of the invisible stress.
It reinforces the crucial action step. If fish are in the tank and you detect any ammonia or nitrate, daily testing is mandatory. The immediate response has to be a large water change, 50%, combined with dosing a concentrated detoxifier.
Like Prime.
Products like Seachum Prime are essential here. They detoxify chlorine and chloramine, and they temporarily bind that toxic ammonia into the safer ammonium form for 24 hours, giving your filter time to catch up. That's the emergency backup plan.
Okay, we've covered stability, bioload, filtration, and the cycle. Let's synthesize all this into the final low-maintenance formula. We said that relaxing tanks are, above all, predictable tanks.
That's the summary of the journey. Low maintenance is achieved not by luck, but by minimizing reactive crisis management. When you implement these principles, large volume, conservative stocking, robust filtration, and a complete cycle, your tank becomes predictable.
And predictability means we replace panicked emergencies with consistent small habits. That's our core value. Small habits win.
And those habits have to directly address the other philosophy out there, the no water change debate.
Right. Some very experienced hobbyists have these complex, heavily planted tanks that rarely need water changes.
But for a beginner, relying on a balanced ecosystem to magically clean itself carries a huge, unnecessary risk.
That risk being old tank syndrome again. Let's go a bit deeper into the mechanics of it.
When nitrification happens, that good bacteria process, it produces acid, which eats up the alkalinity or KH in your water. If you never do water changes, you never replenish that alkalinity. Eventually, the KH buffer crashes to 0, and the water loses its ability to resist pH changes. At that point, the pH plummets, stressing the fish, often irreversibly.
And at the same time, the total dissolved solids, the salts, minerals, hormones, are just creeping higher and higher.
And that TDS creep is more than just a number. It directly affects the fish's metabolic function, specifically osmoregulation.
Explain that.
Osmoregulation is the constant, energy-expensive process a fish uses to maintain its internal salt-to-water balance. If the TDS outside the fish are too high, the fish has to spend a ton of energy just to keep its blood chemistry stable.
So it's exhausting.
It is a constant, exhausting form of chronic stress, using up energy that should go to growth and immune function.
So if we shouldn't use a strict calendar for maintenance, what should guide us?
We advocate for a testing-triggered schedule. Don't change water because it's Tuesday. Change water because your data says it's time. Test your nitrates and TDS monthly. If your nitrates climb above 40 ppm, or if your TDS rises 20% over your baseline, That is your trigger for a water change. It makes your maintenance data-driven and efficient.
And speaking of that, let's explicitly warn people about the top-off trap.
Oh, the top-off trap. A classic beginner mistake that just accelerates the TDS problem. When water evaporates, the minerals and salts do not evaporate with it. They stay behind.
They get concentrated.
Exactly. If you keep topping off the evaporated water with regular tap water, you are constantly adding new minerals, causing the hardness and TDS to creep higher and higher, which can stress sensitive fish.
The fix is simple but not obvious.
It is. For topping off evaporation, you have to use purified water, reverse osmosis, or distilled water, which has almost no dissolved solids. You only use conditioned tap water for actual scheduled water changes where you're physically removing the concentrated pollutants.
Let's add the final piece of this stability puzzle: the power of plants.
Plants are fundamental to an easy, stable system, especially for beginners. Dense, fast-growing aquatic plants are incredible ammonia and nitrate sponges.
Better than bacteria.
They consume nitrogen waste products faster than nitrifying bacteria can. They literally pull pollutants out of the water column and increase the system's effective capacity. This is why the stocking advisor allows for slightly higher bioloads in heavily planted tanks.
That's the ecosystem supporting the engine. And for monitoring all these small but essential habits, the testing, the dosing, the changes, you've created the daily tank journals.
The journals, which come in standard and planted editions, are the physical tool that complements the digital planning tools. The digital tools tell you how to set up the system, but the journals help you track the historical data water parameters, maintenance, dosing, and that turns observation into a simple habit. That documentation lets you see trends and stop a problem before it starts.
So this whole approach planning with the stocking advisor, mastering the startup with the cycling coach, safe equipment, and tracking results with the journal, that's how you get to low maintenance.
That's the shortcut to confidence. And we strongly encourage everyone to explore the Media Hub and the Community Tank sections on the site. Learning from real-world setups and seeing how others do it just reinforces that stability is achievable for everyone.
We've covered a ton of ground today, but the final summary is clear. Low maintenance isn't about finding an immortal fish. It's about designing a stable, predictable, conservative system where the chemical variables move slowly enough for you to manage them without stress.
And that predictable formula relies on maximizing water volume, conservative stocking based on bioload, investing in strong filtration aiming for 5-7x turnover, and the non-negotiable completion of the nitrogen cycle guided by data.
The knowledge is the shortcut, and the tools are the guide. We break all this down step by step with links to all the resources we mentioned on the main website. You can apply these principles using the free tools right now at thetankguide.com/low-maintenance-fish aquariums. And while you're there, check out the broader blog library at thetankguide.com/blogs for deep guides on filtration and tackling issues like blackbeard algae.
And hey, before we sign off, we've got a quick engagement boost for you. This month, we're giving away insert prize type to one lucky listener. To enter, just comment FKLCTTG or use the hashtag FKLCTTG on any of our posts on social media.
That giveaway ends before the end of the month, and winners have 48 hours to respond, so keep an eye on your messages. You can find us across all the platforms, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram as Fishkeeping Life Co., and on X as Fishkeeping Life. Engage, and you might just win.
Okay, now for a final thought for you to mull over. We argued that the most challenging part of fish keeping isn't chemistry, it's patience. So if you had to choose just one element, volume, filtration capacity, or patience to increase tenfold in your next tank setup, which one would offer the most immediate and long-lasting stability and why?
Let us know what you think on social media, and don't forget to enter the giveaway. Comment hashtag FKLCTTG now.
You've been listening to Tank Guide Life Podcast, a product of Fishkeeping Life Co. We'll see you on the next one.